Yeah, I think, and one thing I will say is that, well, we've said, Ralph Barrick's name a bit. I want to emphasize we don't know who made this, and so we don't actually know. Ralph Barrick was a famous virologist, did a lot of great work with coronaviruses. He proposed this efficient reverse genetic system, and he had many students who learned these methods. Xi Zhengli was one of them, and they showed that WIV1, for example, in Figure 2, was made without Ralph Barrick at all. So there weren't that many labs that had perfected this technique. One of them was in Wuhan. Two of them were on the proposal to insert a furin cleavage site in the SARS coronavirus in the Wuhan Institute of Virology. And so while this does kind of get uncomfortably close to triangulating, and I don't want to be, I'm not the judge, jury, and executioner. I'm trying to separate scientists from citizen Al. The scientist Al just says, look, here's the method that was commonly used on coronaviruses for the 20 years before COVID. There are not that many people who are making these infectious clones. They had a fingerprint and how they tended to modify them to be able to reuse these cDNA constructs. We found that fingerprint. This lends itself naturally to the theory of a synthetic origin.
So they said precisely they were copying parts from nature. They were looking at natural furin cleavage sites and putting these into SARS viruses in the lab with slight tweaks. So what we are seeing is completely consistent with a lab escape of a virus that had a furin cleavage site from nature put into it. So my question for Linfa is, who proposed this furin cleavage site insertion in the paper? Was it Xi Zhengli? Did she propose to put the furin cleavage site? So was it Ralph?
I mean, that's not, I don't know who proposed. That's not, the part, we each have a part, right? The Wuhan Institute was the field research, either about immunology, and UNC is doing the virology, so that it's pretty obvious, right? Yeah.
No, but who proposed the idea? Because the idea says that we are reviewing our deep sequencing data. We've seen these cleavage sites, and we're going to put them into SARS viruses in the lab. So the question is, who had the idea and access to this data and could do it in the lab in a seamless way?
UNC, right? It's a UNC lab. This, I mean, the grant is very clearly.
It's University in North Carolina. In case
Yeah.
But I want to jump to a question from Emily Kopp, a reporter at CQ Roll Call. How can the press coverage of this improve? And
just spike protein drives a lot of what happens with the coronavirus, zoonotic risk. So you can get the sequence, you can build the protein, and we work with Ralph Barrick at UNC to do this. Insert it into a backbone of another virus, and do some work in the lab. So you can get more predictive when you find a sequence. You've got this diversity. Now, the logical progression for vaccines is, if you're going to develop a vaccine for SARS, people are going to use pandemic SARS as
sure.
But let's try and insert some of these other related and get a better vaccine.